short-lived as is, went back. It is the case of the applicant that his case that one of his agents that was killed was named. He was in hiding.
In fact, it's brought back so many memories. It's just opened up my normally photographic memory, which I recall things vividly. This is one of our favorite meeting places in the life and death struggle against that marvelous ruler known as Obasanjo. And we pretend that we were meeting somewhere else to throw off the heavies, the security. And usually we booked this hall and would meet behind closed doors where we plotted his downfall and efficiently as we could. It's also brought back memories of Prof, late brother, my guru, now my senior in the world of investments, the many shenanigans, legal, and sometimes slightly illegal, that we depended on him to instruct us how far we could go in our contest against the ills of society. It's brought back a particular poignant recollection, which is related to the political predicament we all went through recently in this nation. Gani Fawehinmi, the late Gani, when he formed his conscience party, expected, or at least his lieutenants, expected that this party was the most natural party for me to support. People are always finding me, they're always informing me which party and which candidate I'm supporting. I'm always the last to know. And I know, of course, what the historic truth. When Gani started Conscience Party, after his titanic battle against some sit-tight, quote-unquote, Democrats, who closed the political space to the point of strangulation of the progressive forces of the nation, it was Gani who fought. He led a fight against this constriction and opened the space for the rest of us to at least attempt to contribute to the political health and progress of this nation. And of course, in the process, he had in fact already formed his own party, Conscience Party. Well, I have to tell them and to tell Gani, I cannot be a member of the party because we will fight all the way. We will fight on principles towards the same goal. The goal will be the same, but I know we will fight. And I cited to him some instances, and of course, he agreed. I said, let me busy myself ensuring that you go through entitlement on the international forum. That's how we work to get Gani his Bruno Kreisky Award for human rights. It was for me far more fulfilling than to spend my time arguing with Gani. So many issues, legal, non-legal, it didn't matter in the slightest. One very quick example. When Gani joined us in Ife to obtain justice, that word again, for the late Wole you remember that name, he disagreed with the findings of the Commission of Inquiry. Naturally, we all did. He joined us on the march from Ibadan all the way to Kudeti. He was there all the time. But then in the end, he brought out his round paper. And I remember this argument. In the process of stating why it was just erroneous to consider that that poor boy, that student died from electrocution as the police tried to make up. Gani wrote, said, there was no, it rained the day before the incident, and everybody knows that when it rains, there is no NEPA. So I said, you may be right in law, I'm not sure about that. But if you put that down, suppose it turns out there was a bit of rainfall during the night, and it dried up before that procession, that protest, would lead to the death, we believe till today, from police brutality. I said, what are you going to do now? And they said, if the NEPA insists that there was a bit of rainfall, but it dried before morning. As a lawyer, how are you going to counter that? Well, to tell you the truth, till today, I cannot recall what arguments Gani had to offer for leaving a particular claim within brown paper. I told him, if I am a justice and you bring this before me, I will tell you that NEPA, as you know, creates darkness all the time, and therefore they command the forces of darkness, and therefore they can command the forces of rainfall through our traditional revelries and so on. What are you going to do? This argument lasted, I don't remember how many weeks, off and on, off and on. But that was the nature of my relationship with Gani. And I would always thank him, even posthumously, for opening up the space of politics, of intellectual exchanges, and constantly playing the role of pro bono publico on issues that touch the lives of every one of us in this community. But there's another aspect to my declining to join this party. I bring that up for multiple purposes, but the major one relates to our recent political travails. As I came in today, I'm afraid I have to rewrite my latest contribution to political debate and socio-political debate. It's coming out in a short while. In fact, I postponed it to be able to accommodate this encounter. I'll have to flesh it out a bit, because I remember so many things. One of them, of course, was the inauguration of my own political party, the Democratic Front for a People's Federation. Sure, I'm sure you remember that. The inauguration, the first one, took place right in this hall. I'd forgotten that. And as I was coming in, and I recollected the entire meeting, I remember which group from the North sat in that area. I remember representatives of the labor movement there who came as observers. Oh, I distinguish, by the way, between labor movement and Labour Party. I hope you understand that. Thank you very much. I remember the women's associations and everything about that event. And it was at that inaugural meeting that I renamed that party for popular purposes, renamed it the Zero Kobo Party, because that's all we had. But we wanted anyway to make a showing on the new space created by Gani, Zero Kobo Party. And I recollect very well whom we nominated, the shortlist we nominated as our presidential flag bearer. One was Olisa Ibakova. Another was Pat Utomi. Olisa we didn't approach immediately because we learned that he was leaning towards something which was called the third force at the time, which was being midwifed by a former president, you know, the one who never lied for a third term in office. And so we felt slightly uncomfortable with my favorite person, who was Olisa Ibakova. In the end, we settled on Patutobe at the next, at the first convention, the open convention, which took place outside the National Theatre in Igomo. Now, Olisa Ibakova happens to be an Igbo. Patutobe, also an Igbo. I narrate and point out that distinction, addressing some internet trolls, you know, creatures of fabrications, imputations of sometimes the most astonishing, mindless type, who have now decided to label me an Igbo-phobe. Me, of all people, I'm supposed to hate the Igbo. It's narrated in the forthcoming publication, to the launching of which I had the greatest pleasure in inviting all of you. The title is Baiting Igbo-phobia. It's in my intervention series. We'll announce a date. So I just mentioned that to illustrate the many obstacles to human understanding and collaborative efforts in the transformation of society, of which, of all the institutions that I know of, the so-called social media has become the most culpable. We're relying on you, the Bar Association, you who know the law, and you know what remedies are available to save this nation from the violence that the social media has become. It's becoming impossible. There's something I believe called identity theft also. Is it recognized in the Constitution? I don't remember. In the law, in the protocols, I don't remember. But if it's not there, please help us to put it there. So at least we can all answer our Father's name and be responsible for whatever is put out in our names. Finally, a very brief word on the topic, which I'm not just going to go into deeply. I've always asked myself the question, way back since the experience of this nation, what is it that leads to a section of any so-called national entity to wish to secede? What are the factors? What are the avoidable ones, and which are the unavoidable ones? Well, I can only go by personal experience. I've had at least 3 or 4 occasions when I felt that I cannot, with any peace of mind, continue to be a member of the so-called Nigerian nation. One of them was when a woman called Sadiat, I believe, was sentenced to be buried up to the neck and stoned to death. I was in Italy, I remember, on that occasion, delivering a lecture at the university, and I began to look for a new place to terminate, to continue and end off my existence. I felt I could not continue to be a member of any community which is so cruel and so unjust. The man goes free in the case of adultery, but the woman, however, is buried up to the neck and stoned to death. If that had taken place, I would have jabbed a long time ago. The second one was my sense of total impotence and bewilderment when the structures of law and justice were so manipulated, so debased, so just rubbished. During the trial of Ken Saro-Wiwa and his companions, eco-warriors, I call them also, that even lawyers like Gani had to withdraw because they did not want to lend their name to what was going to be judicial butchery. And I said to myself, I will leave, I will not even return to this nation. I was away at the time when the sentence was passed. I was in Australia at the time. And when it was carried out. And I said, well, time to move on. So I made up my mind to secede. Well, if an individual, me, can renounce, can be pushed to a point where he renounces his nationality, and there's another, and there's another, and there's another, it amounts to an act of secession. We're going to look for an uninhabited island somewhere and found a new community where we can live with our conscience and progress, integrate ourselves in the rest of the world as best as we could, or else just live kind of monastic existence into which we can bring people of like minds, like sensibilities, like actions, like imagination, and to the second. There are one or two others, but this in particular is very important. The first in particular is the point more critical in relation to our topic. And it is this. I met the president, as some of you may have noticed, a few weeks ago. First meeting, by the way, anyway, for public consumption in about 5 years. First meeting. And one of the items, in fact, the top on the list of items, was the plight of one Mubarak Bala, who's been in jail, going now for 3 years, sentenced in another part of this country for alleged blasphemy. I want to know from this association, from this gathering, where in our constitution it says that any citizen can be sentenced for blasphemy, sentenced to prison. And he's there, you still are waiting. I think there's been an appeal to the Supreme Court, but I believe that that process should have been short-circuited long ago. To make matters worse, a woman called Rhoda thank you, was similarly sentenced for criticizing the extrajudicial murder of Deborah, a citizen of this nation. She was released thanks to the effort of the Human Rights Association just a few weeks ago. Look at how long she spent in prison. That a human being is sentenced for condemning a criminal act, an inhuman act, and yet, I'm sorry, I'm asking where were you, all of you, when this happened? I didn't know, but I have an excuse at least, I'm teaching outside. But you were here, and this woman was sentenced, and it took the efforts of the Human Rights Association, finally, after several months, to get her out of jail for defending the law, for insisting on justice. There's something criminally wrong about this nation. And when I spoke to the President Tinubu, I called his attention to an open letter by Mubarak Bala to the President after his inauguration. Small pamphlet to which I added my own preface and a poem. During that meeting, it was the first item. He'd never heard of it, even though I handed it over to somebody close to it who promised that he would make sure it was handed to him personally. However, that's one individual. What about the media? The media, I beg your pardon. Did they report it? Because when I came out, they asked me, what did you discuss? And I said, the 7-point agenda. I said, the top of the list was the issue of Mubarak. How many of our media carried that item? No, instead, they were playing sensational, useless argument with Wole Soyinka said he always gives each incoming president 1 year before he makes any comment. Why? And so, kind of garbage. Most critical part of my interview with the press when I came out of the meeting was the issue of human rights, of the unlawful, illegal, and criminal detention of an individual in prison. The media did not dwell on that item. Is it any wonder that the social media is what is taking over the narrative and communication, information and opinion in this nation? Well, even our print media doesn't think that kind of situation brought to their attention should occupy the headlines for the next few weeks. So ultimately, once again, I have to rely on you members of the temple of justice, because I think that is the expression. The temple of justice. You just have to wake up to it and pick up this slack where it exists in other institutions or informal, voluntary institutions of justice in the country. We have to rely on your indefatigable and inexhaustible store of wisdom and commitment. You have to help us educate society that it is not one society when you have different gradations of law, different gradations of sensibility towards that institution, that entity called justice, and therefore eliminate one of the critical causes why units within the national entity choose to secede. It is issues like that which, after a while, attains a critical mass, a momentum of its own, in which people say, listen, let's get out of this mess and from our own community. Thank you very much.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.